Chapter Consulting here, and I wanted to do a short video on how to create a budget, budgeting made simple, and give you some tools and tricks that we have developed over the years that make budgeting really, really easy. So my first question is, does creating a budget, does setting the prices for your services or your products make you want to just cry, make you feel overwhelmed? Well, what if I told you we can give you some tools that will make this a very easy process for you? Now, the first thing that you're going to need is Excel or Google Sheets or numbers for a Mac. You're just going to need some kind of Excel software that you can use. Nothing expensive, nothing fancy. The next thing that you're going to need is a list of every bill that you pay, whether it's monthly or whether it's annually. And then I'm going to need you to get a list of every item or every service that you offer. And if you make items, what goes into each item. So I know that this sounds like a lot of information to collect up front, but let me tell you, you're only going to have to collect this once, and you're only going to have to do this hard process once with the method that we've developed. So in your Excel or whatever your spreadsheet is, I want you to create a new workbook, and I want you to call this budget and put whatever your year is after this. On the first spreadsheet, what I want you to do is we're going to work on calculating cost of goods sold. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. If you buy an item and wholesale and then sell it, what you're going to do is you're going to list the item and what the cost is wholesale. Don't forget to include shipping or any fees or anything that's associated with the cost of that item. And then sometimes some wholesale items come with a suggested or it's a mandatory retail price. I want you to list that. And I want you to really be aware of what the difference is and what the profit margin is. I've worked with small businesses before that have purchased really nice items to sell that were quite expensive, that had a very small profit margin, and then all of a sudden the company would put everything on clearance or on sale, and their profits would literally go down to $1. So setting up a spreadsheet like this is going to let you see what that profit margin is and how that's going to affect your bottom line. Now, if you are doing cost of goods sold and you're making the items, I want you to list what the item is and then every item that goes into it and what that cost is. So for example, I love peanut butter cookies, so we're going to talk about making peanut butter cookies. My favorite peanut butter cookie recipe has peanut butter, an egg, and sugar in it, and that's it. I have a really bad gluten allergy, so that's probably why that's my favorite cookie recipe. So what I want you to do is say peanut butter cookies, and I want you to list the egg, the peanut butter, and the sugar. Now, as a baker, you're never going to make just one, right? What's the value in that? You're probably in such an easy recipe, going to make at least 50 or 60 cookies. So I want you to write down, so after you list all the items, I want you to calculate how much of each item you use and what that cost is. Now, it's very important that you keep this spreadsheet handy because we all know, especially this year and last year with the pandemic, the price of food has fluctuated. Hello, have you been to the grocery store lately? In 1 week, my grocery bill almost doubled. So I can really feel for restaurants and bakers or anybody who's purchasing food right now. So I want you to keep a good idea of what those regular costs are. That's going to let you switch vendors very quickly if you ever need to. Then I want you to total up what it costs. So what's the total for the peanut butter? What's the total for the eggs? What's the total for the sugar? Then what's the grand total to make those 60 cookies? Then you're going to take that grand total and divide it by 60 so that you know what one cookie costs. Okay? So that's what you're going to do for every item that you make and that you sell. Don't worry if this sounds a little confusing. I have a handout to go with this video that if you look at the handout while you watch the class, it's going to be crazy easy for you. Okay? Then if you offer services like I do, it's really hard to know what to charge, right? Because people are like, well, what does it cost for you to just sit and talk to me? Well, I've got to pay for my general liability insurance. I've got to pay for my professional liability insurance. Then there's a lot of software subscriptions that I have to be able to make the PDFs and the other things that you guys like to use. And then, there's the membership fees and all of that goes into that. So for every service that you offer, I want you to list exactly what it goes and what it costs to produce that. Now, I don't want you to take the things that are overhead. So no utilities, no rent. Those things you could have, you could not have, right? Like I recently closed I guess it's been a year, closed my office and moved my office home. So I don't pay utilities and I don't pay rent. So that's not really a cost. That's an overhead, right? But actually things that I use to produce my services would be my Canva subscription, my Adobe Creative subscription, my insurance policy, and a couple other things. And that's why I want you guys to have a list. Then I want you to think, how many hours does each service take you to provide? Like when we write an employee manual for companies, start to finish, we invest about 30 to 40 hours in that manual, because there's the gathering the information, there's the meeting with the clients, then there's making sure that everything we have is current, up to date, and in compliance with state and federal laws. Then there's the review and the final edits. And all of that takes anywhere from 30 to 40 hours for us to produce that one document for a client. You're probably thinking that's a really long time. That's because we like to double and triple check and make sure that what we give you is something that you can use for years. And sometimes we even tell people, hey, we're writing this where you can grow into it, so you never have to hire us to pay us for this again, or you're just going to need to edit a few things, or hey, you're going to need these policies in the future, so they're in a separate document, so add those in when this and this happens. So we try to do things like that to really make it worth the money that you are spending with us. So once you total all of that up, I want you to figure out what your cost per hour is. Now here's the deal. As a consultant, there is no way that we can actively bill for 40 hours in a week. I all know you guys work 80 hours a week. I work 80 to 120 hours a week very easily. So, but we can't say that we do or count on that, right? Because life happens. We have children, we have spouses. I have a new puppy that requires a lot of attention. So the amount of time that we actually spend working is less. Then now that everything's opening back up, we've got going to meetings, we've got networking events, we have emailing, we have marketing, we have all of these things that are vital that we have to do for our business, but we can't bill for. So our secret, what we do is we figure out what the cost of those services are when we bill 20 hours a week. And so we never budget for billing more than 20 hours a week, because we feel like that's a really good, very low conservative estimate of what we can bring in revenue-wise and ensure that we make our goals and cover our overhead and make enough to pay ourselves. So I hope that that makes sense to you guys, but you need to know what that cost per hour is. And I don't recommend that you budget for any more than 25 hours in a week, because you have to give yourself time to do all of the very important overhead items that don't bill, as well as time for yourself. All right, so that's going to give you your cost of goods sold, whether it's services, products, or things that you buy and sell again, right? Then you need to calculate your expenses. Now, these are the expenses that are your actual overhead that don't go into making the items. So these are going to be your utilities, your rent, any advertising budget that you have, any marketing budget that you have, any printing budget that you have. It's going to be your website, things like that. And I want you to calculate what those costs are for the entire year. Now, some things, like for us, we found it's so much less expensive to pay for it for the entire year, like our Zoom membership. So that's a one-time-a-year cost, but we still budget for it every month and save for it all year long. I know that that probably sounds a little crazy, but it's easier for us to save for those expenses and know that, hey, this $20 every month goes to Zoom, than to all of a sudden get hit with a bill for $200 and be like, man, we didn't see that coming. So we really try to be proactive and think in the future and look ahead at what could possibly be coming expense-wise. Now that you know what your total expenses are and what your cost of goods sold are, this is where you can set your price per item, right? Or price per service. Now here's the secret. You don't want to be the lowest. You never want to be the lowest, because then people are going to wonder about the quality. But at the same time, you never want to be the highest, right? Because until we become Coach and have the reputation of Coach, we can't sell at Coach prices. We want to strive for those Old Navy prices, right? That middle of the road price range. We don't want to be Walmart or Target. We want to be Old Navy. This is a little bit more expensive and a better quality. We want the quality of Coach. We want all of those things that Coach offers, but we can't charge those Coach prices until we work our way up to those prices. And I want you to really pay attention to how your items are going, how you're selling, what traction you're catching, because that, my friends, is going to tell you when you can start raising your prices and get to that Coach level, because I want everybody to get to that level. And I want you to make sure that no matter what, you're always making at least, at the very minimum, 10 to 15% profit on every item. Because here's the thing, you've got to get paid, but you also have to have money that you can save for a 90-day operating cost, because things happen. You've also got to have money to replace items that you use regularly. Life happens. And then you also just want to have money that you can reinvest in your business, because great trainings become available, or you have the opportunity to move to a better office space, but there's first and last month's rent, and there's the moving expenses. So you always want to have a little extra sitting there and be able to pay yourself, right? Then you want to, you take all of that information, and that's when you do your projected revenue. And remember, we always want to be modest on our projected revenue, what we put down on paper. And this is what I always tell everybody. We want to be modest on what's on paper. What is on paper, we need to know that we can accomplish in a 40-hour week. Even if we had to miss a month's worth of work, we can accomplish it. We can meet these numbers, and we're going to be okay. We can afford to live off of what we make, and our business can continue to thrive off of those numbers, right? And that's what we're going to shoot for on paper. Now, personally, our goal is going to be way up here, and we're going to be striving to meet the goal that's way up here. We just always want to keep those goals on paper realistic, because then we know if something happens, we're always going to be able to pay our bills. We're always going to be able to pay ourselves. We're always going to be able to keep ourselves going. So that's the difference. So if you do services, budget for 20 hours a week, 20, 25 hours. Please don't budget for more than that. And do that 20 to 25 hours of work per employee, because there's downtime for every employee. There's things that you have to learn. There's resources that you have to develop. There's all kinds of things you have to do that you can't bill for. With items that you're selling, increase your revenue 3 to 5%, but not more than that, because it's hard to determine the fluctuation in markets and what people are going to want. And also remember too, you're going to have your hot seasons and your cold seasons. So if you're the kind of business that makes all your money over the summer, then you need to have the self-control to hold back and save some of that to cover those months when you don't have as much revenue coming in, right? So each one of these items is going to be a different spreadsheet. Then once you have all of those done, you should have 4 spreadsheets. You're going to go to a 5th spreadsheet, and you're going to list your projected revenue, your cost of goods sold, and your expenses. And you want to make sure that when you add your cost of goods sold to your expenses, that amount is lower than your revenue, and you want your revenue to be 15% higher than what your expenses and cost of goods sold is, because that's going to ensure that you're going to make it. So I hope this makes sense. I'm going to post this PDF that we have handout to go with this video. If you would like something that is more in depth, it's about a 35 to 40 minute class, so about 3 times as long as this class. We have a Budgets Made Simple webinar that you can purchase on our store. Just go to our website, and you can go to our online store, download that, and purchase that. And with it, that comes the webinar, the PowerPoint, all kinds of handouts and tools for you, as well as an Excel spreadsheet that we've built that you can just fill in and plug numbers into. And it'll make things so much easier for you moving forward, because it'll give you that basis that you need to keep building your workbook for every year, and make the budgeting process about a 30-minute to an hour-long process every year once you get through it. So any questions that you have, message us. Let us know if you like this video. Let us know if this helps. And with that, we look forward to seeing you soon.